Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of In Conversation with Evolving HR. This week's guest doesn't really require an introduction. It's Kelly Swingler, everybody.
Hey,
Thank you for joining me, Kelly.
thanks for letting me come and sit with you, Kirsty Baggs-Morgan. It's lovely, and I have missed your face so much.
It's been a while. It's been quite a while since we've had a good old chinwag.
It has.
For anybody who doesn't know Kelly Swingler, and I can't imagine there are many of you out there that don't, Kelly
I'm sure
is
there are
also
thousands.
the burnoutologist because of the phenomenal work that she does in training coaches to be burnout-informed coaches. And that's a very important distinction, I think, now. For what you were doing previously was more general, wasn't it? And you've drilled down into basically enabling coaches to approach burnout in their clients in a much more healthy and informed way. How would you describe it?
Yeah, and the reason that came that, so I suppose I've been working with, and it started purely with HR, which I know we'll probably come on to today, but like when my first and second burnout, my replacement then died, and that for me was like, I've got to do something about burnout in HR. And so that was my focus for years and years and years and years. And it was, talking on stages, going to events, having programs, delivering. I had a global program that I was delivering around the world, coaching burnout leaders, HR leaders, leaders at burnout. That was my, my kind of big focus. But I think, a few years ago now, I began to get asked how, like, I think I've got this client at burnout. Can you help me? I think my client's at burnout. Can you tell me what to do? Can you give me and I was just like, that's not a safe space. I can't keep answering all of these questions. And the DMs just kept coming and coming and coming. So I think really that was when I had to, or not had to, but I chose to take a look at everything that I was doing, my own methodology, my own research, my own thinking, kind of 12, 13 years in this space now. I'm doing my research, doing, my PhD is ongoing. I realized I'm not an academic writer, so we'll see how that one continues. But I love the research. I love the study. I love joining the dots. Like I've been joining the dots on this now for quite literally 13 years to really, really understand it. And so, so it's that. But I don't think it's just burnout coaches. And the burnout informed side for me is really, I genuinely believe every single coach needs to be burnout informed. And I think when we see the rising rates that we've had of burnout since 2019, if you are working with people and or coaching people, you have to be burnout informed, because how we have always been trained to coach and, kind of trained to, if we've been trained to kind of welcome people back after, burnout related absence or any of that kind of stuff, right? Burnout is so much more and so much different than stress. So if somebody's been off and you're just going through your normal return to work process, not going to help with burnout. If you're coaching them and you don't fully understand burnout, it's not going to help. We said just before we went live, right? I've just done a video for my own YouTube channel that is about survivorship bias and how that is severely impacting burnout coaching, because just because you've been through it does not mean you are safe to coach it. People that may watch this, I spent the last 15 months or the last, up until last November, really, really seriously critically ill, right? And had surgery last October. I can't believe that was last October. We're now in June. That's like 9 months ago. Wow. But like had surgery last October. That does not make me an expert in the health issues that I was experiencing. And I think lots of people are like, I've experienced burnout, now I can coach it. And your own experience does not equal that. So yeah, for me, the burnout informed is about doing it safely, morally, and ethically. Because if you're just guessing at it, or you're trying to just use your own experience as your expertise, then you're probably going to do more harm than good.
That's what I was thinking. The consequences of getting that wrong
huge.
Could be extremely harmful.
Yeah, huge. And, again, I say, in my run up to burnout 1 and burnout 2, I was working with coaches, and my coaches were brilliant. And yet they were coaching me as brilliant coaches. They didn't see burnout. They didn't modify their coaching. And so, their role was, okay, we've got this really high performer. We've got this woman that's clearly, really good at what she's doing. Like, let's push her even harder, right? Let's kind of go to where we want to be. And of course, that ended up, first burnout, as I said, made me really seriously ill. Second, nearly killed me. And like it's just like normal coaching is, I just genuinely don't think it's safe anymore. And we may come onto some statistics in a moment, Kirsty, but if you look at kind of 2026 burnout report, there's between like 74 and 91% of adults are saying that they are working in severe stress environments. The amount of people
high.
Yeah. Up to 91% of the workforce, employed adults, 91% are saying that they're experiencing high stress. Now, of course, not every one of those 91% might be in a state of burnout. Not all of them might be coming through the other side. Not all of them might be going in. Again, stress and burnout, different things.
Mm-hmm.
But if those stress levels continue, burnout's knocking on the door. And I can't believe that, like just as coaches are only coaching that 9%, like the 9% that aren't at burnout or aren't experiencing stress, right? And so I think that's why I want it to be safe and moral and ethical, so that we can stop people getting to that point and or help them to come through it safely instead of, pushing them into relapse.
I already have a million questions. This is what you do when I listen to you speak. It's really interesting, coaching as a profession, because it isn't regulated.
No.
There are massively varying qualifications and accreditations out there.
Yeah.
I have seen adverts for become an accredited coach in a weekend.
Yeah.
I did mine through the Academy of Executive Coaching. It took me 6 months and an awful lot of money and a massive assessment at the end. So I feel like I went through a fairly rigorous process, but I'm also mindful of the fact that I went through that process in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
And so you're not really obliged to do anything once you've done that initial qualification. Right. And then couple that with the fact that a lot of people that set up their own businesses do it to address something that they've found problematic themselves in their previous working life. So, people set up learning and development companies because they want to do learning and development differently, or they set up, I was talking to someone the other day, started an occupational health company because all of their experiences of occupational health was rubbish. So I get that's where a lot of the business ideas come from. But when you're coaching, you can't make an assumption that you can coach through something that you experienced when it's as serious as that, when it can have, it can potentially result in death and serious illness, long-term medical conditions, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
We wouldn't set ourselves up as a psychotherapist without a qualification just because we had received therapy.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't set ourselves up as a lawyer because we didn't like the legal support that we got in a previous role. So there's something about some of those professions where you just don't go there unless you're fully qualified. What the heck is it about coaching that makes people think they're qualified to do something? Is it just because it's unregulated?
I think for lots of us, and again, particularly if we focus on HR, right? I would guarantee you every single HR professional on their CV has got, and I coach managers. And the majority of the coaching that is being done to managers isn't coaching, right? It's pointing people towards the policy, or it's saying, do this instead, right? That does not equal coaching. I think also when we take it to burnout coaching, and for me, this is where the whole kind of education piece comes in as well, right? We've got lots of people don't even understand what burnout is. And so they then think, I can now coach it. But, we see the World Health Organization definition regurgitated. Again, in the 12 years that I've been doing this, the kind of World Health Organization definition is kind of this much of it. And it's only from the lens of psychology. It doesn't understand why. It doesn't explain why people are dying from it, why people are living with chronic physical, mental and emotional health issues, right? It doesn't answer, the World Health Organization definition doesn't look at any of that. Neither do like the 12 stages of burnout. So again, when I say I've been joining the dots, like that literally is from the lens of psychology, from neuroscience, from the neurological stuff, all of the nervous system, the biology of it, the energy of, like, literally the whole spectrum of burnout, in order to really, create, if you like, burnoutology and what that looks like, and then kind of the coaching frameworks and stuff underneath it. I think a lot of people that just, I coach burnout, or we use, burnout and stress interchangeably. And I see it in the headlines, right? I'm a burnout and stress expert. I think, well, and then people will comment on my posts but you're not talking about burnout. You're talking about stress. You're not talking about burnout. I've seen a friend of mine was on a webinar a couple of weeks ago. She's like, this guy is a burnout expert. I was like, he's not. He's a leadership expert that has begun to talk about burnout. Now, again, it's not, I don't want to discredit anybody, but again, some of these, but like he's a leadership expert that reached burnout and he started to ask a couple of questions on burnout. And now all of a sudden he's a leadership and burnout expert. I'm like, but you're not, because you're starting with the wrong thing. And I think what we need to do is understand burnout. And then I think we'd understand the severity of it. And then I think, if we want to do it from coaching, but you're absolutely right. And again, lots of people haven't even done those coaching qualifications. Some people are looking for the cheapest one. If they want the certificate, then but maybe they are doing the weekend version. And again, it's not, I don't think it's necessarily that those people are doing anything wrong. Like they want the certificate, they're thinking they're doing everything right. I want I want the training. This is where I'm going to go with it. I think we've got to be looking at the coach training organizations. I've seen, become a burnout coach in a weekend. And I'm like, the master burnout coaches that I'm training, they're with me for 12 months, right? They're spending 3 hours a week with me for 12 months in order to gain that level of expertise. The burnout-informed coaches spend 2 days with me. And even those 2 days, and you've done the 2 days, right? Even those 2 days, really, I mean, there is enough to allow you to be a burnout-informed coach. But I say to everybody, that is not enough to make you a burnout expert.
No.
Like you're not going to leave the 2 days as a burnout expert. And the organizations that think it's ethical to train somebody in a weekend course to be a burnout coach and then send them out there and allow them to put that, I think we've got to start holding the organizations to account.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. It's, I've talked about this before. I only realized that I'd been through burnout myself when I did your 2-day burnout.
Quite a lot of people do the same. Yeah, they're like, no, I've never reached it. And then by day 2, they're like, I think all of that I went through there was burnout.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am a qualified executive coach. I think from doing your program, I would now possibly recognize some of the symptoms in a client. I would not feel equipped to deal with that. I would send them your way or to one of the coaches in your stable is not the right word because they're not horses. I don't know what we call them. But I would send them to one of your qualified coaches and say, this is who you need to speak to for this, because that's not me. That is not me. And the thought of potentially making something worse for somebody is horrifying to me. I'm still staggered by that 91% statistic. That is what
you can have a look at it. I think it is, I can't remember the organization that did it, but it's the 2026 burnout report. It came out in January. And it gives you all of the stats. Again, it talks, a lot of it is stress related. They have called it the burnout report, but a lot of that is in there. And some of the stats, again, are really scary.
I feel like people use stress and burnout as interchangeably as they use cold and flu. And anyone who's ever actually had the flu would not call a cold the flu again, because once you've had that, you've had it. And I think people, I've had people go, oh, I'm so burnt out, I need to do nothing this weekend. It's like, no, you're not. You're tired and
or exhausted,
stressed.
or you need a break, right?
And that's okay. It's still valid.
You can be tired, you can be exhausted, you can be stressed, you can be needing a break, you can be all of those things and not say burnt out.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at something like that, 91%, and I mean, even if that does include like people that are stressed and exhausted as well, I know what your equation for burnout is, and I'm going to get you to repeat that in a second. What are we doing to people to make those statistics so damn high? Because 91%, even if it's half of that, even if it was 50%, there's a serious problem that's causing this for people.
Yeah, I think one, and again, it's a research study. I linked to both of these in my LinkedIn Live on Monday. So there's just been another kind of study that's concluded, if you like. It looked at 60 years of burnout research, and it included 800,000 workers globally. And what it said was that the number one cause of burnout, they only looked at 3 factors. So again, obviously I caveat this because there's lots and lots of factors to consider. But if we look at this kind of study that concluded, what it says was, out of these 800,000, the number one cause of burnout was a lack of job clarity, right? A lack of clarity around the job, unclear expectations. And I think, you know, I'm not coaching a huge amount of people one-to-one whilst I'm, you know, kind of building the academy. But out of the clients that I am working, unclear expectations is definitely linked with moral injury. Another type of burnout is absolutely part of that. And I think the reason for a lot of these unclear expectations, we have got leaders and managers that themselves are on the brink of burnout, right? They are literally to the point of breaking point. When we do that, we go into our primitive brain. Our primitive brain stops us from being creative. It stops us innovating. It stops us being able to problem solve. It stops us being able to take decisions. It stops all of that kind of stuff. So nobody really wants to make a decision. Nobody understands what it means to be strategic. Nobody understands kind of what it is that we need to look at to kind of grow businesses. So everybody's kind of doing a bit of guesswork, and then communication is really poor. So the communication isn't kind of talking to anybody about what needs to happen anyway. So you've got this group of people, typically the kind of middle manager, you know, kind of first tier leader, if you like, that kind of in the organization with just ridiculously unclear expectations. They don't know what's expected of them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how they should be going. And of course, then for lots of people, if we've got unclear expectations, how do I know what the goals or outcomes are? How do I know when enough is enough? How do I know what is expected, what isn't expected? How do I know how I should be showing up or not showing up? How do I know if I've got the right resources or budget or people or any of that kind of stuff if I don't know that I've got unclear, if the expectations are really unclear? So I think we've got that's going on. But I also think for lots of managers, lots of leaders, we are at the point of just kind of assuming, well, we're all burnt out. Like, would you expect, right? We just like, we're all experiencing it, right? We're all tired. So we've got that kind of apathy that's creeping in at the same time because lots of people are exhausted. Yeah. But at the same time, we've got lots of people that are staying in jobs. And again, I talked about this in the Burnout Coach Collective. We had a roundtable discussion on this the other week. We've got lots of people that are staying in organizations knowing that they are at burnout because the job market is so uncertain, or they've already invested 20, 25, 30 years in an organization. And it's like, I've only got another 5 years to go. Right. Or I've only got another 2 years to go, right? So they're pushing through for that, knowing that they're at breaking point. And the leaders go, well, you know, but it's still doing an all right job, right? It's still okay. Because, of course, we then continue to present and we continue to show up, and we continue to perform. So I think we've got presenteeism, we've got a lack of clarity, we've got a lack of leadership. We've got lots of people that are on the brink of burnout, but actually job market, finances, uncertainty, all of the other stuff that's going on. Like, this is, you know, at least I know it. So I can just continue to keep showing up and kind of doing it that way. And I think we've got to be looking at everything else, right? So again, if we're looking at it from an HR perspective, well-being is not a thing that you just sprinkle on top of all of the shit that you're dealing with, right? Again, I spoke about this in my book. You will know this very well from the conversations that we've had. But like most organizations at the moment, if an organization was a person, it's like a 65-year-old morbidly obese, sedentary, stressed out person that just sits, you know, watching crap TV all day, right? Just literally like scrolling through like reality TV, like mind numbing TV, like no outdoors, no exercise, no movement, no strategy, no goals, no outcome, no desire to get out of bed in the morning. But then they go for a 10-minute walk on a Saturday morning and they're like, well, I'm healthy. That is what the majority of workplace wellbeing looks like, because we sprinkle on, don't we? Here's your wellbeing app. Here's your step counter. Here's your EAP. But we don't look at the entire, we're not looking at the fact that there's crap communication. There's no, you know, there's no leadership. There's no strategy. There's no clear expectations. There's no salary. There's no reasons for doing anything. But we sprinkle it on and we go, there you go then. But then we don't look at why we are not creating workplaces full of well-beings. And I think like that is my biggest bugbear, like one of my biggest bugbears. So I think like it's no bloody wonder that so many people are getting to burnout. But again, what we then try to do is we say, well, and we've had this conversation as well. We then try to say, well, we'll just solve the issue with a bit more resilience training, because clearly resilience is the issue for everybody reaching burnout. But we're not fixing any of the crap that's actually contributing to burnout. And then we wonder why more people are stressed and more people are reaching burnout. And so we do a little bit more resilience training, and we invest in a little bit more well-being, but we're not changing any of the structures or foundations. We're not looking at workplace design. We're not looking at job design. We're not looking at leadership or management or salaries or expectations or sense of belonging or safety, or we're not looking at any of that stuff. We're just going, here's a well-being app, do a bit more resilience training, see you later.
And that's one of the, you and I have talked before about a dislike of the word resilience in the way that it often gets used, because the implication is you need to be able to cope better.
Yep.
It's never, yes, we agree that this system is pretty awful. Most people would struggle to bear it. It's like, no, you need to toughen up.
Yeah,
and
like it's your
that's
problem.
where resilience gets misused. But no, you're absolutely right. And it's funny because it's poor and unqualified leadership, this constant pressure to do more with less, a decades-long focus on productivity above anything else, and a total failure or organizational and manager level to recognize the people that work for you as human beings.
Yes.
And I love that well-beings expression. That's brilliant. But we have created a working environment globally that is bad for people.
Yeah.
And then we wonder what's gone wrong when they get sick.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the assumption is like people are just replaceable, right?
Yeah.
So if I reach burnout and I go off sick, they'll just bring in another me. And if you go off sick, they'll just bring in another you, right? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the focus again has gone onto the wrong place, right? It's gone onto shareholders, it's gone onto leaders, and the focus on like what we need to be doing for all people at all levels of the organization, in all roles of the organization. I think we've lost sight of the fact, right, that organizations are made up of people. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, you can talk about AI, you can talk about, all of that sort of stuff. You can talk about innovation and what all of that looks like. But fundamentally, I mean, even, again, we were having the conversation, weren't we, about you said you put a post out. But like fundamentally, like AI is learning from people, right? We still need the people input in order to make that happen. And I just think we've seemed to have lost that. We've lost the focus on organizations being made up of people. And I think we're now just like, they're just workers, and we're just, we can just replace. But if we look at the quality of the knowledge and skills and experience and wisdom that some of these people have, either about the sector or about the organization or about the people or about the role or the history of the organization, any of that sort of stuff, like we're not seeing that as valuable anymore. We just want people that can, as we said, right, just do less, do more with less. Yeah. And just keep on going. And actually, if you're not resilient enough or you reach burnout or there's something wrong with you, we'll replace you with somebody else. And, we could maybe get away with paying them less, and, we'll just keep the churn going. And we have to stop that. I've been saying this since 2020. And again, there will be, I don't know how many videos that you'll find somewhere all over the place about this. But I genuinely think what we have needed since 2020 is a collective breath, right? From everybody in the organization. We need to stop. We don't need to just keep going, doing, like next thing, project. That's not what we need to stop. And we need to say, like, are we even headed in the right bloody direction, right? Go back to foundations. Like, what are we here for? Are we delivering that? Yes or no? How do we make that happen? Are we looking after our people? Yes or no? If no, what do we need to do to change it, right? Are we an organization that people would genuinely want to work at? Yes or no? And we don't do that at the same time as continuing with 10,000 other projects and doing 10,000 other things. We genuinely need a collective pause and a collective breath and a genuine, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And how do we start to rebuild some of those foundations again, instead of just like, how do we hit the next figure? How do we hit the next goal? How do we, keep stakeholders happy and shareholders happy? And how do we keep doing this whilst, quite frankly, killing the people that are showing up every day and doing the work, you know, and there's still expectation, well, we're paying you to do it. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. And I think that's where a lot of, sadly, a lot of organizations are back to.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I don't like it.
No, I mean, and so let's like look ahead. The statistics can't continue to increase at the rate they have been, because they'll run out of people eventually.
Yeah.
You know, we'll get to 100% burnout or 100% stress. And are you seeing in the work that you do, are you seeing that viewpoints are starting to shift and companies are starting to recognize that this is a problem? Because, I mean, you can't really get much more dramatic than 91%.
Well, I think we are in some organizations, but again, so some of the biggest sectors where burnout is proving to be an issue, right? We've got healthcare. So again, UK wise, we look NHS, right?
Yeah.
We look at the knock-on impact of that. Now, I think I said to you, like, my dad spent 2 days in hospital this week. There are not enough staff. There is not enough money. There's not enough resources. You know, I would still be waiting about another 9 months if I was still waiting for my treatment on the NHS. We start to look at that. We've got doctors striking because they're not being paid, right? There's so much of that kind of stuff, but ultimately it starts to then impact patients and what we need to do from that perspective. But of course, what we said, well, we'll just recruit agency nurses, or we'll just, you know, buy in nurses from other countries, and kind of this is where we take it. So we've kind of got, we've got healthcare, that's one. We've got HR, that is another. We've got legal, that is another. And we've got education, right? So we've got 4 sectors fundamentally that, you know, not necessarily make the world go round, but when you're looking at healthcare, education, legal, and
highest,
HR,
like
that
some
are
of the
highest,
highest,
and have continued to grow in the highest rates again since 2019, right? When you look at that sort of stuff, again, I think what we're seeing is lots of people are leaving those professions to then start something else, right? The teacher is leaving to do their own private study. The nurse is leaving to do her own private practice. The HR professional is leaving to start their own HR consultancy. And again, I think we've got to have the conversation, right? Do we just want loads of outsourced people? We don't necessarily want employees anymore, because we're just going to pay to outsource people, come in to do this project and then go again. Is that genuinely where people want to take it? You know, we've been talking about the gig economy again for I don't know how many years. But of course, then is that genuinely where employers want to take it? Because if so, there's a lot of stuff that you're going to miss on that. I'm not saying don't ever bring consultants in, many amazing consultants, but is that what you want the majority of your workforce to be? Is that what you want the majority of your people to be? So that we are going to run out of people. But again, I think lots of organizations, I don't really think they care, because they will just continue to find the people, right? They'll outsource them. So if the entire workforce leaves, we'll just get a few more AI in, or we'll invest in a bit more technology, or we'll just go with agency workers, right? And then we don't have to pay them holidays or pensions or whatever else. But again, I think we have to look, somebody has to be looking, and for me, this has to come from senior leaders. We have to be looking at the moral and ethical stance of that. And that's where I think this collective breath comes from. Like, what do we actually stand for? Do we genuinely care about the people or not? I think the organizations that do care about the people are already creating the changes, right? They want well-beings in their workplaces. That's fundamentally where they want to get to. I think we all know and can see the organizations where either the leadership or the government or funding cuts or whatever else is happening, we can see the impact that that's having on people. And again, the answer is, like, how many people do we just want, like, rocking up every day because I've only got to get through the next 5 years and I can retire and get my pension? Do we genuinely want to be engaging with organizations where people are just going through the motions so they get their pension in 5 years' time? Or do we want to be engaging with organizations that genuinely are people focused? You know, when I was an HR professional, everything that I did was quite literally people first, right? Burning handbooks, scrapping annual performance appraisals, doing amazing, brilliant stuff. Because I genuinely wanted to create, like, amazing places to work. Like, that was my thing. And if we haven't got that left, we've got a big issue.
We have. And it's, I mean, I know I don't want to talk too much about HR burnout in particular, although, you know, we've done our wellbeing report for 3 years now.
Yeah.
I've had your brutal commentary 2 years running, but, you know, brutal but needed. you and I know that HR professionals are rubbish at putting themselves first. And, I don't want to offend anybody who's watching this, but Kelly and I have both worked in this space for quite some time and seen hundreds and hundreds of HR professionals refusing to get the support or help they need, or even ask for help.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they either think that I've got to do all this on my own, or I can't possibly admit that I'm flawed in any way, or can't recognize that they need anything from anyone. Does that happen with the other professions that you just talked about? So with education, with nursing, with lawyers, are they better at getting help for themselves, or do they also put themselves last like HR?
No, because again, I think when you're at that point, when you are, I mean, I suppose there's different things, aren't there? I think before we get to the point of, but like if the investment actually happened, and I think there is investment in, in other places, but ultimately education, NHS, legal, right? It's the same thing, right? It's about stats, it's about output, it's about, in effect, how quickly can you move people along in the process, right? And kind of how much money can you do in, make along the way, right? How can we do more with less? I think when we start to do more for less, and I will, in many ways, the NHS do a lot of training. But again, is that money that is going in the right way, in the right places? Each individual trust would have to answer that. I think from an education perspective, you get staff training days. Is that necessarily giving all the teachers what they need in order to do the job? So I think we have got issues, but I do think also in those, HR has always been rubbish for asking for themselves. And it's almost like, HR, sit over here, we're HR, we're okay, we don't need anything because we're HR. The rest of the organization needs all of this support. I've worked with, again, when I left corporate to kind of start to, initially, although, burnout was I suppose a side hustle when I kind of started it. But my whole thing when I left corporate was HR transformation, partnering with HR leaders to really look at what they were doing within their team. The amount of HR departments that I saw that were creating amazing away days and training and coaching programs, for everybody else. And they're but they're not putting themselves in the pot. Like, why aren't you as part of this program? Well, we're HR. And what is wrong with you? And obviously we had some different changes. Things changed, right? Yeah. But HR are definitely awful at it in terms of asking for support, asking for budget, asking for help, taking the time, doing all of that kind of stuff. And that absolutely has to change. But I also think the closer we get to burnout, the less likely we are to see that we need support anyway. And I think we've got, if we say we've got four sectors, right? Healthcare, education, legal, and HR. We've got 4 sectors that are pretty much at breaking point. At no point do you then think, we just need some more coaching or we need some more training, right? Now that could be the answer, right? Get the coaching, get the support, do everything that you need to do. But again, fundamentally, the closer we get to it, we don't think I need some support right now. We just, we go into kind of safety mode. We just say, I've just got to keep going. I just got to keep myself safe. I've just got to keep showing up and performing.
I think I've told you this before. I remember right before I ended up getting signed off for 9 weeks. I remember my doctor saying because I had to go to the doctor. I was having heart palpitations like no one's business. And it was frightening because it was happening all the time. And she, hooked me up to this machine and in the doctor's surgery. And I remember her saying to me, do you not think you might need to change job? And I remember looking at her and going, this has got nothing to do with work.
It was the same with me.
I couldn't see it. And it was honestly, I had 9 weeks off. I was convinced that it was anxiety. I now know that was not the case. Yeah. And, my return to work was a shit show because I was HR and nobody knew how to handle HR being off sick. So I didn't get a return to work plan or a return to work anything because I remember my CEO going, well, you do that. So we don't know what to do because that's what you do.
Yeah, totally.
And I did not help myself. I didn't do anything to change my behaviors and my attitude to work and the way I dealt with tricky situations. I didn't do a thing differently. So anyway,
but we don't necessarily know what to do, do we? So again, because we haven't got, if we don't know what it is, and this is where I come back to the education piece, right? We don't know what we don't know. Because we don't know what we don't know that it's burnout. And again, I say this to everybody, we don't necessarily know. The first time that we go into it, it's highly unlikely that we actually know it's burnout. A lot of the time we need to kind of go through it a second or a third time, and then we're like, oh, I'm not doing this again. And then it's like, this is where we need to go with it. And this is why I come back to, if we had burnout informed leaders, managers, HR professionals, coaches, right? If we've got the people that can spot it, not necessarily the people that have got the answers, but if we've got people that can spot it and can refer on, or can say, get this help, or can say, get this support, that's how we start to make the difference. Because so many people keep on going. I've coached over 700 leaders in this space now, right? From a burnout perspective, the amount of them that, I didn't know it was burnout until it hit me, right? That by its very definition, by its very nature, is burnout. And that's the bit that we need to do something about. So yeah, I will continue to fly the flag on this. It's not, we don't need more resilience training. We need more burnout informed professionals. And then we need to create the workforces, the workplaces, the leadership, the systems, the environments, the policies. We need to create everything then that stops toxicity getting to us in the first place.
Kelly, I could talk to you all day.
Well, I can keep on going.
I know, but I also know that you've got another call. So where can people get hold of you if they want to learn more about you and what you do, or, benefit from your
I still
training
keep saying to people LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is definitely trying to keep me hidden. So you can, by all means, go and find me on LinkedIn. If you want kind of more of the details or resources or books or podcasts or blogs or videos or any of that kind of stuff, website is the best place. So kellyswingler.com. There's also my growing, I'm going to say growing, but if people are watching this on YouTube, then you can head over and find Kelly Swingler on YouTube, and you'll find some of my videos there as well.
I will put all the links below for anybody that wants to check out any of those things. So Kelly, thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, we could have a whole series of conversations with you about this, but I guess that's your YouTube channel. So people can just
do another one.
I will definitely have you back. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the day. Bye.